This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 10 of the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Alec and Kyler Staley, and I'm Drew Rosenberg. Guys, college basketball is in full swing. 3 games in, the Hoosiers are 3-0 and heading to New York for the Empire Classic Sunday. How are you guys?
Good. I know Indiana fans are probably a little bit worried about the upcoming trip out east, especially the way that they played the first couple games. But I think a lot of people still very excited about the potential opportunity that's out there as well. So it should be a good litmus test to see kind of where Indiana's at. Obviously 3 weeks into the season here.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a little bit rocky these first 3 games. But Alec kind of nailed it. I still think that there's a little bit of excitement there, especially when you're going in. You can't get a better test, facing the defending national champions right now. And I think Indiana, they got a lot to prove a little bit. Still a lot to work on and everything. But you said it, Drew. College basketball is here. We're deep into the weeds right now. So it's a great time.
Yeah, I guess let's just jump right in. The Hoosiers are 3-0, but it has not looked pretty in those first 3 games. 3 mid-majors, 3 very close games for the Hoosiers. Alec, what's kind of been your biggest concern through 3 games?
Yeah, it's been a concern over the last 3 years now with Mike Woodson is the 3 ball, right? Last night you saw it again. Not only their inability to shoot the 3, but defending the 3 is probably the biggest concern and the bigger of the two when it comes to the 3-point line. They're outscored 111 to 33 on threes this year, and that's not just this season. That is a concerning trend that you've now seen since Mike Woodson really took over the program. And you go back 2 years ago, and it was the same thing in Mike Woodson's first year. They were outscored by 177 points at the end of the season on threes. And then last year was 189 points on threes. Both years, Indiana offensively ranked in the 330s and then in the 310s for made threes per game. So, we know Indiana's not going to be a super efficient and effective team when it comes to high volume shooting from the perimeter, but you cannot continue to go down this path of their inability to find some success from the 3-point line, because if you're giving up 8, 9, 10, 11 threes a game, that puts a lot of stress and a lot of emphasis on being extremely efficient in the half-court offense, which we've seen that Indiana has definitely struggled with at times over the course of these first 3 games, outside of probably a little bit on Thursday night where they started to get some sort of groove and rhythm in the half-court. But that's the biggest kind of point of emphasis that Indiana has to really focus on moving forward. You're not going to change in 1 or 2 games, obviously, but this is a really concerning trend that continues to obviously pop up, and again did last night with Wright State's phenomenal 3-point performance, and the stat that really popped out the most from that win coming into that game. Wright State only got 19% of their total points from the 3-point line, and then I think it ended up being about 43% that they finished with against Indiana, and that just shows you right there that a team that comes in not shooting the 3 ball super effectively ends up torching Indiana from deep and keeps that game a lot closer without the second leading scorer and the NCAA and Trey Calvin, keeps that game a lot closer than what a lot of people thought. So Indiana needs to really figure out what's going on from the perimeter on both ends of the floor if they want any shot of obviously kind of reaching some of these expectations that they have, because they don't have a dominant on-ball guard like they have in maybe some of the recent years, but specifically last year with Jalen Hood-Schifino, who can really bail them out of any kind of ugly half-court situation. So need to figure that out, and obviously need to figure that out pretty quickly with UConn on Sunday.
Yeah, Andrew Welage, the Greensburg native, had not taken a single shot before yesterday's game against Indiana. He went 8 for 13 with 25 points and hit 7 threes. He hadn't taken a shot in the first 2 games. Had only played 11 minutes. the problems on defense are real for Indiana, especially at the 3-point line. Kyler, what's your biggest concern through 3 games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna probably echo a lot of what Alex said. It's the defense, it's the rotations. Um, you know, it's very fixable right now. We've seen at times over the course of the Michael Woodson era where the defense has kind of went through a stalled stretch of games. Last year, in particular, I remember that they had that really bad losing streak at the beginning of the Big Ten season. Kind of came together and got back to that defensive mindset, but with a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new pieces, with this program, it was always going to take time for them to kind of get used to what Mike Woodson wants on the defensive end. So, I mean, it comes down to communication, and it just comes down to knowing like where your man is at all times as well. So it's pretty obvious the game plans, for every team that's came in so far is we're going to shoot a lot of threes. We're not going to attack the basket. We're just going to make Indiana come out and guard us, and that's what they've done. And honestly, luckily for them, they've hit all their shots and everything, and all 3 games have been relatively close, because of that. So, and then you throw in, there's also the concern of rebounding. Indiana has struggled there. But then again, I mentioned this in the recap video last night. It just comes down to effort at that point. It can't just be Khalil. It can't just be Malik, and it can't be the other big guys, fighting for rebounds. The guards have got to step up and everything. But with the opposing teams taking long threes, that's going to be long rebounds. And the Indiana guards, those guys are going to have to come in and just be a little bit more disciplined, wanting the ball. They go into UConn this week, and they don't have a willingness to rebound. It's going to be a long day for Indiana. So I like the improvement that I saw in the Wright State game when it comes to the offense. It looks like it's getting a little bit better, a little bit more smoothed out, but the defensive play has just been brutal for Indiana right now. So they got to clean that up, or it's going to be a long season for them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned my biggest concern right now. It's rebounding. The Hoosiers have played 3 teams that they have a huge size advantage against, and they have been dead even on the boards through 3 games. I wrote about it last night. It's an issue. I mean, it seems like guys, Woodson mentioned it, they're relying on Khalil Ware and Malik Renew to grab every rebound, and the guards are just trying to leak out in transition and get ahead because the Hoosiers want to run. But the problem is when you're competing 5-on-3, 5-on-4 for boards, it's a losing battle no matter what, even if you have a 7-foot Khalil Ware who can get a ton of rebounds. And I guess when you go to look ahead to the Empire Classic where they're going to take on UConn, you have a 7'2" Donovan Clingan who you're going to have to keep off the offensive glass. And yeah, Khalil Ware is going to probably have to play a big game to do that, but you're also going to need the guards to help. They're going to need to get in there, get those loose rebounds, especially off the long threes, because that's what Indiana gives up. A lot of threes, and those rebounds end up being pretty long as a result. So I guess, Alec, what are your I mentioned UConn, that's the next game, defending national champions. No Stephen Castle, it looks like, for them. What are you seeing going into that game?
Yeah, obviously, the news kind of came out on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday when UConn played, that Stephen Castle was not going to be playing in that game. Was probably going to miss some time. We found out Friday morning that he's likely going to miss at least Sunday's game against Indiana. So that's a huge miss for UConn there. 5-star freshman who's pretty much done just about everything you could ask for as a freshman coming into a pretty veteran unit, obviously off of winning a national championship with a couple key pieces back from that roster. Really kind of the driving force for both what they do definitely offensively, but even more so what they do defensively. And I think that's going to be where they miss him the most. I mean, coming into Sunday in Ken Palm's ratings, UConn's the 7th rated team in defensive efficiency. So a lot of that is due to ball pressure, getting up into the guards. Obviously, you have Donovan Clingan, who is averaging about 2.5 blocks a game in the back line there. But the opposing guards are not able to get even a breath with Stephen Castle in the game. So you take him out, you still have a pretty solid defensive backcourt when it comes to Tristan Newton, really veteran guard, really long and big, physical, athletic wing there. Hassan Diarra, who Indiana fans may remember a little bit of. Indiana was involved in his recruitment 4 or 5 years ago for a little bit of time, but about a 6'1", 6'2", really hard-nosed, physical defender with a really high motor. So you kind of pair both of those guys up with what you have in obviously Donovan Clingan, really strong defensive team. But I think you're going to go back to potentially the 3-point line there, which I think is still going to be a major issue in this one. If you look at UConn's overall roster from top to bottom, while they aren't a terrific 3-point shooting team, only about 34% on the season. You have guys who can absolutely fill it up. Obviously, Cam Spencer, the Rutgers transfer, has had a phenomenal season to start. Almost about 90% of his shot attempts this season through 3 games are coming from the perimeter, and he's shooting about 46% on 8 attempts a game. So you're going to have to obviously be able to defend that. Tristan Newton, Solomon Ball, who's a freshman who actually got the start on Tuesday for Stephen Castle, who's probably going to get the start again moving into to this weekend. Another really strong shooter when it comes to attempts behind the 3-point line. And then Alex Caravan, another former IU recruit, stretch 4, who had a phenomenal season this through 3 games. About 52% of his shots are coming from 3 too. So you have guys who are going to stretch the floor, make it extremely difficult on the defensive end for Indiana. You're probably going to see a lot of dribble drive opportunities with some of these quicker downhill attacking guards. And if it's anything like what Indiana's defense been the first 3 games, you're going to see what Kyler mentioned, which was a lot of poor rotations, a lot of overhelp, and a lot of open threes. And when you combine that with potentially having to double team Donovan Clingan in the post, depending on how effective Khalil Ware is right off the bat, that's a really bad recipe for what Indiana's put on the floor thus far. So still a lot of concerns there when it comes to the 3-point line, but definitely an added boost if Stephen Castle is with the full assumption that he's not going to be able to go come Sunday.
Yeah, Kyler, what does Indiana have to do to win? I mean, this is a really tough matchup. Obviously, UConn is very higher ranked. They're the defending national champions. I mean, they lost a decent amount, but they also just reloaded with a ton of talent. Dan Hurley did an incredible job this offseason. What does Indiana have to do?
It's kind of a loaded question because, you don't really have like the right answer with that, just the way Indiana's been playing and just all the mistakes that they've been making and everything. But I mean, it's going to be a few things. One, I think right now for me is they've got to utilize Khalil Ware. I feel like times Indiana forgets to utilize him a lot on the offensive end. We go back to last year; it was kind of a breakout game for Khalil when Oregon faced UConn, and he kind of had 18 points and however many rebounds he had and everything. It kind of woke everyone up about who Khalil Ware is. So this is kind of a personal game, I would think, for Khalil, to kind of prove that wasn't a fluke or whatever. But then you also got to look at Malik Renew. He's been playing really, really well as well. But utilizing that front court, creating opportunities for those guys, the lob opportunities, just feeding them when they're post up. I feel like that would be a good start for Indiana on the offensive end, and just playing fast. Mike Woodson said multiple times throughout these games, he wants the offense to get out and run. He wants to get a rebound. He wants to push the ball, push the pace. I think that would be a major advantage for Indiana if they're able to do that. They got a ton of athletes on the floor, a lot of speed on the floor with Xavier Johnson, all their other backcourt pieces. So they have a chance to do that. That would be great. And then obviously it's kind of beating a drum right now, but like it's just playing better on defense. It's not overhelping. It's rotating, correctly. It's communicating, just following your guy and making sure you know what your job is. That's a good start, but it's going to be a test for Indiana for sure. They've got to come out. They've got to play strong to start off, and they've got to keep the momentum going. And they've got to prove that, we want to attack. We want to win this game. So it just comes down to a lot of things. So it's not going to be a perfect game. You don't expect that from Indiana right now. Still a lot of things obviously they got to work on, but it's going to be a good test for them at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then talking about obviously getting out in transition, getting some sort of momentum in kind of the full court aspect. I mean, one thing to keep an eye on is Xavier Johnson's health, right? We'll see how healthy he's going to be come Sunday. If he's not, right, I think that takes a lot of that ability away from Indiana. Obviously, you still have Trey Galloway who likes to get out in the open floor, but Gabe Cupps is much more of a slow it down, half court setting point guard. And if they don't have Xavier Johnson at full health, or if he's not able to play, which again Mike Woodson didn't know anything post game yesterday, said he would probably know more today and obviously tomorrow. But that's a significant loss, especially if you're talking about not having Stephen Castle on the other end of the floor. If you're not able to put a veteran point guard with Xavier Johnson and get out in the open floor, I think that's going to be something that's really going to hinder Indiana's offensive ability and obviously defensive ability too with guard play there.
Yeah, I saw Xavier Johnson walking in the tunnel after the game yesterday. It didn't look good. He was, I mean, it wasn't like a small limp. He was really struggling to move that knee. I'm not sure if it was the knee for sure, but it didn't look good. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee Johnson plays the way it was looking last night, but as you said, Woodson, no one's really going to know until this morning, just the way they work, way those things work. And for Johnson, it sucks. A guy who's been healthy pretty much his entire career up until last year, and now battling injuries for the second straight year is not something I think he was hoping for coming into the year. Al, kind of what is your reason for hope for Indiana fans that they're gonna, I guess they're 3-0, but turn it around and improve their play? What have you seen that shows that they can do it?
Yeah, the strong front court play, right? I mean, you look at Kyler touched on it earlier, right? The buddy ball system that Indiana's been able to put together now again with Malik Renew and Khalil Ware. I mean, they've been fantastic through 3 games and really saved Indiana and bailed them out on numerous occasions. I think you're starting to see that chemistry really grow. Malik Renew talked about it, pretty heavily last night in the post game there of just how effective Khalil Ware is around the rim and just how much confidence he has in Khalil Ware to just basically throw it at the rim and he'll be able to get it. So, I think you have to lean pretty heavily on both of them. Obviously, as Kyler mentioned, Khalil Ware had a career game against UConn last year. Different setup with Donovan Clingan not playing the 30 plus minutes that he's getting this year. But it's going to be an extreme test for not only Khalil Ware to see what he's going to be able to do against high major Power 5 competition, guys who are just as big, if not bigger than him, right, and just as skilled and athletic. But also, I think even more so for Malik Renew, right? The biggest talking point with him was is he going to be able to stay on the floor and not pick up cheap fouls? You haven't seen a lot of that this year, but again, you haven't been going up against guys who are going to want to be banging in the post on the block, and even guys who can take you off the dribble, which is what UConn has at kind of that hybrid forward ability. I think you're going to see Malik Renew out on the perimeter a lot more, guarding Alex Caravan, and that's going to be I think the first real test and real kind of litmus test for him to see if he's going to be able to stay on the floor. But when you look at what kind of should be exciting is, again, that duo has been fantastic. I think they're going to continue to play at a high level. We'll see what happens with the shooting. I think that's still the biggest question mark on this team, and probably will be throughout the rest of the season. And if you lose Xavier Johnson potentially for this game, right? You go with already a bench rotation that has not been able to step up when they've really needed them this year. You bring the Energizer Bunny and Gabe Cupps out of that unit, and now you're really kind of searching if you are going to lose Xavier Johnson in this one, even if he's not in full health and able to play the extended minutes that he should be. But you need more out of Mackenzie Mbako. You need more out of CJ Gunn. I think those are the 2 guys that really need to step up, especially in this game, but moving forward with their perimeter shooting ability and the potential that they have from 3. But if they just click a little bit, with their perimeter play. I think that's what should excite Indiana fans is they just need to be able to knock down a few more outside shots per game, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses because of the play and chemistry that front court has through a couple games here.
Right. It has been the front court, but you also look at other exciting pieces. It's kind of obvious right now. Gabe Cupps is not afraid of the moment. Obviously, Mike Woodson's turned to him, when the games comes down to the wire. All three games, really, they've ran with that three-guard lineup. Mike Woodson trusts him as a freshman to make the right plays, to make the winning plays. So you look at that it is a little concerning if Xavier Johnson is out and you got to throw Gabe Cupps in the starting unit, which you assume that he will be part of that starting unit if Xavier Johnson is down. But the bench has got to step up a little bit. Alec touched on a little bit. We've got to get more from CJ Gunn, got to get more from Caleb Banks, and just overall the front court rotation with Anthony Walker and Peyton Sparks need a little bit from them as well. Peyton Sparks has come in, he's played with a lot of energy, but obviously at times he gets a little nervous and he gets a little flustered and out of sorts. So you got to look at that and everything. And then last night with the Wright State game, you started to see a little bit of what Mackenzie Mbako can do for this Indiana team. Yes, he had kind of, the bad second half or whatever, and he went down that really bad stretch. But, he still scored in double figures. He was making plays on the ball and he was creating, and that's kind of what Indiana brought him in to do. So if he continues to just show that progression, it's going to be a slow progression, but I think Calvert Chaney said it really well. It's going to take time for Mackenzie and everything, and just continuing to, play harder when he's on the floor. Try to fix up his defensive, mindset. But he'll be fine. As long as he can keep projecting and everything, I think Indiana, the offense will open up a little bit more. But you got to be excited about what Gabe Cupps is bringing to Indiana right now. He is a freshman, but he plays with a lot of maturity, and he's got a great IQ. So we'll just see about that. But you lean on the excitement of the front court, but you also look at, Gabe Cupps, and you look at what he can potentially bring to this Indiana team moving forward.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing about Mbako. He came out aggressive last game, which is something we hadn't really seen, and I thought that was really good for him. Yeah, he struggled, but I think it's important to remember he's a freshman. It's a long season. We keep talking about Hood Schifino and how great he was last year. In Hood Schifino's first 3 games for Indiana, he shot 6 for 21. And Mbako's first 3 games, 6 for 17. So I'm not saying Mbako's going to take that next step guaranteed, but it's 3 games into his freshman year. He's making an adjustment. There's so much college basketball left, and he's shown he can do it. And I don't think he's going to have many games where he's going to go 1 for 7, 1 for 8 from 3 like he did last night.
Yeah, I think again that's the key for Indiana. If they're able to unlock that potential with Mackenzie Mbako, obviously the sky's pretty much the limit for what I think that front court's able to do, and that will just open up so many different avenues offensively. But specifically, he needs to get much better defensively. We saw a lot of lapses, and I think that's where the biggest issue is with him. And I think he's still at that stage where if he struggles defensively, that's just due to his inability to hit some shots offensively. And you need to be able to separate the two of those. And I don't think he's able to do that yet. So I think once he's able to hit some shots, get a little bit more efficient offensively, I think that's going to make him a much better defensive player.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to see more as the season goes on. It will be a really good test for Indiana and Mbako, I guess the whole team, Sunday and Monday when they're going to take on 2 Power 5s. You're at least going to get UConn and one of Texas and Louisville. Louisville hasn't looked that great, but Texas, again, another really, really good team. So it'll be a really good test for the Hoosiers. As always, for all things IU, follow Indiana_FRN on Twitter, Facebook, and check out the HoosierIllustrated.com website. And make sure to hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. As always, thank you for listening to the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. We'll be back next week.